It's 7:30 a.m. This is the meeting of the Edina Housing and Redevelopment Authority on this Thursday, July 16th, 2026. Starting today with a hazardous air quality index and interesting situation for all of us, I think. Also, Dick Crockett Funeral Day. So we are handling these meetings in a hybrid fashion, just like we are at the City Council meetings. People can watch online. They can come into City Hall. We'll give people a chance who are watching online to call in and visit with us. There are no public hearings today, but they can certainly call in for a community comment. If there's something of concern they want to address with the HRA, they should feel free to do so. And those are some of the numbers that you should have in mind or be writing down at home if you are watching from home or your office somewhere else remote. And so having provided that information, I'm going to call the meeting to order and I'm going to ask for a roll call.
Commissioner Risser.
Here.
Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Commissioner Pierce. Here. Commissioner Agnew.
Here.
Chair Hovland.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've got a form of meeting agenda that's been published to both the HRA members and the general public. Is there anyone on the HRA who wishes to amend the agenda in any form or fashion or from the staff level? All right. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda as published?
So moved. A second.
Commissioner Jackson moves. Commissioner Agnew seconds the approval of the meeting agenda as published. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the meeting agenda as published, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. We have a meeting agenda to work from. It is time now for community comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the HRA on a matter of concern to them that's not on the agenda this morning or scheduled for a future public hearing? No one coming forward? Do we have anybody online?
We don't currently have any callers, but I do recommend that we wait 1 minute before proceeding.
All right. We'll do that.
All right, it's been a minute and we still have no callers.
All right, very good. We'll move on. Our practice is to have our executive director comment on any public comments that were made, community comments that were made on the at the prior meeting. Is there anything to report there?
We had no community comments at our last HRA meeting.
All right, very good. Thank you for that. Next is the consent agenda. We've only got one item on the consent agenda this morning, and that's the minutes of the June 11, 2026 meeting. Does anyone have any modifications to those minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the June 11, 2026 HRA meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Jackson moves. Commissioner Pierce seconds the adoption of the minutes from the June 11, 2026 meeting of the HRA. Any further conversation on that? All those in favor of adoption of those minutes of the HRA from June 11, 2026 say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm
Carried.
going to abstain because I was not there.
Right. We have 4 ayes, 1 abstention, and the minutes are approved for June 11, 2026. Similar to the consent agenda, we only have one item on the reports and recommendations portion of the agenda this morning, and that is a proposed grant agreement with an organization called SKLO Inc. or LLC at 7275 Ohms Lane, and Bill Neuendorf has that matter for us this morning. Our Economic Development Director. Mr. Neuendorf, welcome.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. This item on the agenda does require your action this morning. It's the only action item. The rest of the items will just be for information and discussion if you have any questions. But this is similar to a proposal that I presented earlier in the year, proposal to use the Spark Streamline Grant Program to support a small business that is relocating and expanding in Edina. So just as background, back in 2021, we established that Spark program. We relied on statewide legislation that allowed cities to use unobligated tax increment dollars that had already been collected and paid by commercial properties to support job growth and reinvestment in the community. This program terminates at the end of the year. The Spark program included both funding for larger projects and smaller projects. This streamlined grant is intended to be simple and straightforward to really work at the pace of small business. So the program is relatively small, but vital for small businesses. We've identified eligible expenses on this project. I haven't had coffee this morning, so I'm still working through that. So this project has eligible expenses primarily related to accessibility and to retrofitting a portion of the space so that it can be occupied by 2 businesses rather than just one. The Spark program is set up to require matching grants, so the owner has already invested a substantial amount to purchase the property, and now they're investing even more to retrofit it for their expansion needs as well as the needs of a future neighboring business. And this program is capped at $24,000 reimbursement after they complete the project. I mentioned the Spark program expires at the end of 2026, so we've modified our grant agreements to make sure that they start work and get it finished post-haste so that we can wrap everything up and fulfill the support of the project by the end of that year. This slide walks through the typical process that we've applied for this streamlined grant program. For the last couple of years, I've been reaching out to the business community to see if there's programs or projects that are in need of support. Oftentimes, in fact, every time, this has been a project that is intended to go forward, but hit a roadblock and paused and delayed as they try to find a way to get over that hurdle. We worked with our redevelopment attorney about 2 years ago to prepare a template that we can use for each business, try to keep our legal costs low on this. So the HRA's obligation is to consider this request and, if it's approved, to provide reimbursement after the project is finished. The rest of the responsibility rests with the business to scope the project, to hire the architect, to hire the contractor, to make sure that they do what they said they would do in their contracts, and then to provide some reporting back to the city, to the HRA, so that they can be reimbursed. At that time, we will review their project, make sure they did everything they told us they were going to do, and then issue a certificate of completion, and then provide a check to reimburse them. All that will happen by the end of this year, as required by state law. The property in question is on Ohms Lane. It's a single-story office complex that's arranged as commercial condominiums. So the owner owns the actual building, but the parking lots, the site work, the landscaping is owned by the association in common, and then every owner pays their proportional share of that. So the image on the top left is an image of the building. It's at 7271 and 7275 Ohms Lane. And then the aerial on the lower right shows the relation of the building. It's outlined in that blue box towards the northern end of the property. It's actually right next to the creek behind a bunch of trees. So I've been working with the owner for several months now, SK Lowe. She and her family have owned and operated the Kuman Reading and Math Tutoring Center for several years in our community. Most recently, they had been located right across from City Hall at Edina Avenue, the building that was eventually torn down and is under construction by Opus for a new building. So as they realized that their lease was coming to an end, they sought new locations. It was very important to them to stay in Edina. This is where they've it created their base, and it's where the bulk of their students and participants come from. So they really wanted to stay here. They found a property on Ohms Lane, and over the decades, it had been transformed from a multi-tenant building into a single tenant, which is great for the past owner, but for this current use, it just isn't sufficient. So the intention there is to subdivide the space again to have 2 individual spaces. They would use the majority of the property, and then there'll be a future tenant that will lease the other half. That second tenant has not yet been identified. But the hurdle has been that with new construction codes, it's not as simple as rebuilding what was there in the 1980s. ADA provisions, accessibility provisions, building codes have all changed. So the cost of restoring it to accommodate 2 tenants is very, very high, over $300,000 just for a couple toilets, a new door, and a wall. And that gave the owner some pause as far as how they're going to get it working. But they've found a good contractor. They feel confident in their pricing. They feel very confident that this is their path to continue the tutoring function as well as to reuse the other portion of the building. So with the Spark program, what we recommend to do is enter into this agreement, allow reimbursement for them to help pay for up to $24,000 of the cost of the ADA improvements. That's 2 new toilet rooms and a new ADA entrance so that wheelchairs and other folks with limitations can get into the building readily. So it's a fairly simple project. We follow the same exact process and the same contractual template as we've done for all these other streamlined programs. Ms. S.K. Lowe is in the house with us this morning if you have any questions of her about her business or her project. And with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Manager Neuendorf. I think generally we really appreciate you working with the small business community to think about these opportunities to help them grow their businesses and use some of these Spark funds. So I don't have any particular questions at this point in time. Just to get clarified, though, the qualified expenses, I think we're up to $71,000, and what we're talking about is that typical grant amount that we've been doing of $24,000 is what's being recommended.
Correct. That's exactly right. The qualified expenses of the plumbing, the ADA, the entrances, $71,000 to build 2 new toilet rooms. So it's expensive these days. So this program does have a cap of $24,000. For other projects, we have gone higher. That just, it entails a whole lot more paperwork and red tape and evaluation. They don't have time for that. They want to be up and running, and the school year's coming. So they're happy if they can have the support at the $24,000 level. They're confident that's enough to keep going and meet their deadlines.
Good. Thanks for that additional information. I'm going to turn to my colleagues now to see if anybody has any questions about this matter. Commissioner Risser.
First, I want to say, when it was clear that the Opus office building was going to be removed, I was very concerned about affordable spaces for businesses, and I did speak out on that. And I do think in Edina, we talk about affordable housing, but we also need to talk about affordable office space. So I am absolutely thrilled that your organization has found space in Edina. And I feel really torn on this on the one hand compared to like millions of dollars of Spark funds that we have granted. This is a really small amount. We have our own ADA issues on public infrastructure that we have not addressed. And so it's hard for me, and I know, we keep saying, well, the Spark, if it's not spent, it's gonna go back to the TIF district. And I've been consistent in saying, I really think, we had $10 million. If it had gone back to the county for redistribution, it could have been used for projects, public spaces here in Edina. And so that is my concern. And we need to, I actually walked across that bridge because I had to drop my car off at Grandview Auto this morning and made my way to just check it out. There's a lot of spalling happening with the concrete on the west side, and it actually looks like the section of the deck that you go on to get to the parking ramp is sort of sinking down a little bit. So I have concerns. The other concern is the air quality here is just so horrible today. And I was listening to the radio. Where do you take your kids to go inside? And I have really wanted the Lewis Park Rec Center to be replaced. It got cut in 2024. It got cut in 2025. We've cobbled together several sources this year, but it's probably the riskiest and less likely of all 3 years to advance. And so I'm looking at this, okay, it's just $24,000, but looking at all the other expenses that we've got and the public need, I'm having a hard time with this. But anyway, thank you.
Other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, so I have just a quick question for our business owner, Ms. Lowe. When do you think, will you be able to open up classes again when school starts? Will this be done in time for you to resume business in the fall?
Dr. Lowe, you have to come up to the microphone here and introduce yourself and just give you a chance to talk a little bit about your business as well.
Yes, the Edina Kumon has been in place since 1991. So it's been around for 35 years already, and we are doing it all year round. So even though we have to move, and the space was not ready because we couldn't get the contract signed and so forth, so we had to take on a temporary classes at the community center for the summer, over. That was last summer, not even this summer. But it took us a very, very long time to get all the, modification and everything in place. So we had just started the project, but the classes is always continuing, and we're just finding space, to do that. So right now we're occupying a place that is actually undergoing some renovation, and they have been very careful in terms of putting, temporary wall and as well as plastic, partitioning, so it wouldn't affect the classes at all.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you're going to be able to continue operations during this, and excited that you'll have a brand new space for your well-established business.
Right. We haven't asked, for any subsidies or grants in the past. And this was one thing when I find out, we have to pay quite heavily for the ADA, bathrooms and so forth, that I felt, if there's any way to help us, that would be great.
Terrific. Thank you.
So it's a small grant compared to the building price as well as all the, renovations. And it's only half of the renovation right now. So there are other parts when we have to, put it on the market that we also need to renovate again too. But the ADA requirements is satisfied, for the Kumon side, as well as there are 2 ADA bathrooms, so one for each tenants then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other
Stand by in
questions?
case anybody else has more questions. Anybody? Okay. Thank you. You can go ahead and sit down.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, other questions for Mr. Neuendorf? Any comments? Yeah, Commissioner Agnew.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being here and continuing to invest in the community. I echo Commissioner Risser in just thinking about when the Opus building was going away, thinking about where tenants might go. And so it is really great that you were able to continue to find a place within Edina and continue investing in the community. So I just want to thank you for that. I'm personally supportive of this. I think that this is exactly the kind of project where we have these funds available. It makes sense for me. So I am supportive of this. Thank you.
Commissioner Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is very exciting to be able to use funds to just invest back in the community. And so I am definitely supportive of this. and thankful that you were able to find space in Edina and stay in Edina. So thank you for your multiple years of running your business in Edina, and we're glad that you're able to stay.
Commissioner Jackson?
Oh, I'm in favor of this. Thank you. We're happy you're here, and I think this is a good use of these funds.
I would just comment that having legislative support, I think in both 2021 and 2025, to be able to do something like this in communities where we can gather up some of those unused TIF funds and use them to promote small businesses has been a pretty extraordinary opportunity. And the idea that it's coming to an end and we need to be thinking about how to wrap up that program, but trying to get some good work done in the meantime to support small business. And yeah, we can worry all we want about where people are going to be going, like when a building like the old building on stilts is torn down. But here now you're coming to us with an opportunity to have us help you, have your city help you that you've been in so long and supporting people with your program. Continue to build your business, and that's exactly what I think that this fund is for, is to be able to help small business. And I appreciate, again, Manager Neuendorf's diligent work in the small business community to be able to make sure we take advantage of these kinds of opportunities. These other issues we have to address, we can address with other funding mechanisms, but this one has this particular tranche of revenue has a dedicated sort of purpose, and we're trying to take advantage of that and make sure that we make our small business community as strong as it can possibly be. So I'm glad that you were able to work something out with them. I'm obviously supportive as well. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed grant agreement to enable the business expansion of Kumon Math and Reading Center at 7235 Olms Lane.
So moved.
Member Pierce moves, Commissioner Pierce moves, Commissioner Agnew seconds the motion as stated to approve the proposed grant agreement between the city and the Kumon Math and Reading Center. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the adoption of the motion and the awarding of the grant, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. All right, thanks for being here this morning, and take care of yourself today. Be careful. Yeah. All right, we now are into that portion of the agenda that Manager Neuendorf was alluding to, which is a report out on various projects, including Spark-related projects, and our Executive Director may have some comments as well as our Affordable Housing Manager. Turn back to Manager Neuendorf.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Under the Executive Director report, we just have some information we wanted to share with you. So I'll just cover the rough highlights, but there's a full write-up in the staff report that's been posted. The first is an update on the Starling restaurant. A few months ago, we had a discussion about possibly using Spark funds to help them expand their parking lot. They've been looking into different parking solutions to address what's perceived as a parking shortage there for a few years now. We had a robust conversation about whether Spark would be a good investment for that. Initially, there was some suggestion of support when we first discussed it with this group. So after that meeting, I met with the owner and had more of a heart-to-heart, asked them to really value engineer their project. It is a very expensive project. Some of it is with some trimming, they could cut costs significantly was our goal. So I asked them to get serious and scale back the cost a little bit. I also encouraged them to continue their conversations with the landlord to make sure that they were still on board for funding. So it was a good a difficult but good conversation. Ultimately, they got back to me a couple weeks later and decided to pause the project. They felt it just, as they try to bring down the cost, they reduced the parking count, and ultimately they felt it just was not the right project. So they did formally withdraw their request for funding. They do not expect to submit a variance or a modification to their zoning for that site plan, so that idea is essentially dead. They will look at other solutions. Those have not been identified yet. Every other option they looked at was a no in the past. So But as far as any Spark funding for that project, that is withdrawn and no longer on the table. So just to make that clear.
All right, thanks for that update.
And then the other update, last year, let's see, let me make sure I've got the right ones here. Last year, when this group authorized the extension of the Spark program to follow that 2025 state law, I promised to come back with regular updates so that we know where we are with the balance. And so in your packet, there's a robust update there. In summary, our initial budget, based on unallocated TIF funds that had already been paid by the commercial TIF districts, that budget was $10.2 million in total. So far, we have obligated and paid to finish projects nearly $8.6 million over the last several years. We still have about $248,000 in funding that has been obligated. The projects are under construction, but we haven't reimbursed them yet. And then we have a few that are under review. The one this morning for Kumin and SK, $24,000 is now committed for that one. And then I am still working with a few other small businesses to see if we can squeak in a few more streamlined grants in August. If they're not ready in August, I think that's going to be it for the streamlined grants. We're getting really down to the line, and I want to be careful that we're not over-promising or getting someone in a pickle if they can't finish the work in time. And then we also have one other project with Enclave Companies with the Macy's furniture redevelopment site. We did pledge or authorize ourselves to use up to $1.5 million of Spark in order to reduce any future TIF contribution to that site. So, so if all these things happen, we will fully expend the $10.2 million. So while it's possible that we might actually invest all these dollars into the community, I also want to be realistic. Enclave's work at the Macy's site started about 1.5 years later than we first thought it was going to. They ran into even more difficulty in the financial markets than they expected. So while they're moving forward, I don't know if they're going to be moving forward quickly enough to actually use Spark on that project. So that's kind of a wait and see. But if they do move forward quickly, we would fully expend the Spark program. If they don't, we would end up with a balance of about $1.35 million at the end of the year. And those funds would then be returned to the same place they started in those commercial TIF districts to help fund obligations of those districts or to be used in any other way if that's allowed by state law. So that's where we are as of today, and just want to give you a full reporting on that.
All right, Commissioner Risser has a question for you.
Specifically, this is regarding the settings apartment and that France TIF 2 district. My understanding is the original TIF district, 7.5 million, was for phase 1. Is that correct?
The original TIF agreement, so it's been modified a couple times, but the original had about, I don't remember if it was 7 point something, I don't remember the precise
7.5,
number.
yeah.
And that was intended to be laid out under 2 notes. The first note would be issued upon completion of the office and all the site work.
Right.
The second note would be issued after the completion of the apartments.
Exactly,
Right.
but both went to that phase 1 site.
Correct.
None of it went to the settings.
That's correct.
But the 4.862 million went to the settings.
That's also correct.
Okay, so aren't we talking about a TIF district that's way over what it was originally created to be? We added additional funds to it. It's a larger amount of public money that is being invested in that TIF district.
The fact that we use Spark to support the affordable housing in the settings does not impact that TIF budget. It is certainly a contribution that we made from another funding source, from the Spark program. So while it was different than we first expected back in 2022, when we approved the overall master plan. It's not a violation of the TIF budget or funding source or anything.
Okay, and I'm not concerned about that original, we're not going to pull money from phase one, making that very clear. We're sticking to what we agreed to there. But what keeps me up at night is realizing that when council approves a TIF district, it can still garner millions and millions and millions of extra TIF dollars without having a public hearing. And I don't understand how that's possible, because my understanding is if you are taking a TIF district and you are enlarging it in terms of the financial obligation of the public, and it's TIF or Spark, but that is money from the public, there should be a public hearing. But
Are you
apparently
referring to
that's not the case.
Are you referring to the Spark money?
Yeah.
That's not TIF money, though.
I understand that, and I feel like we're having this conversation where we're going, it's another paradox. It's just like the tunnel paradox.
Hardly a paradox.
No, it's not. It is a paradox.
It's the use of Spark funds, which are dedicated to construction purposes, in lieu of having to have an expanded TIF district from a size standpoint. So we're using available cash to reduce the amount of money we'd otherwise have to do through a TIF district, which is a benefit to the taxpayers.
It feels like it's a big loophole or a paradox. I will think about it more. I don't see how it's Spark, yes, but Spark is TIF. And you can say that the Spark has been processed, or the TIF has been processed into this new program, but you are obligating public dollars to a greater extent to this, and we don't have our attorney here, so.
So is this an assertion that we're doing something illegal?
I am very concerned. It is me being an elected official being very concerned about this. And you can interpret it as an assertion, but I feel as if this is something that we should be concerned about.
We've had some of the finest legal advice you can have in the state of Minnesota around the TIF and Spark. And I would have no worries whatsoever that we have done everything that is appropriate and legal. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it comes down to, do we need to have a public hearing every time we expend public dollars on a redevelopment project? And I think that's what you're arguing, that we need to have a public hearing every time we do this. And I think, legally we aren't required to. That's how I interpret what's being said.
Just for clarification, that's not what I'm saying, because I did not think we should have a public hearing for what happened this morning. But what we're talking about is a single TIF district and bringing more dollars into it. It is remarkable that you can establish a TIF district and then you can increase the amount of public investment in it to the degree that we have with TIF 2. And maybe that's where we leave it today.
Any further comment? Manager Newendorf?
I'll just state that the state law requires public hearings when a TIF district is established and when you set the budget, but public hearings are not required when you get into the specific projects that come after, because you've already had the public hearing to cap the overall budget. So that's where state law requires public meetings and public notice, but not necessarily public hearings. And my recollection is when we first created the Spark program, I believe that was a public hearing as well, to set the overall budget, but then only require meetings like this to actually award funding to specific programs or projects. So I share your confidence, Mr. Chair, that the legal representation we use knows the TIF law backwards and forwards. They know the public finance laws backwards and forwards. So I have I'm not at all unconfident that we're doing things properly.
So the amount of TIF reimbursed is not going to exceed the amount that was budgeted for or contracted for?
That's correct.
Regardless of how much TIF is collected. I mean,
That's
we collect no more than necessary.
Correct. In order to exceed the budget or anything of that matter, then we would have to go back and modify the TIF district and hold public hearings at that point. But as we stand here today in the summer of 2026, I don't see any need to, or any expectation to have to modify that budget. I think everything we're going to do in that TIF district, 72nd and France number 2, will be within the allowable budget that has already been approved and reviewed.
I think my recollection is consistent with yours, that the spark money is used at the setting apartments. I think it's about 4.862 million, was for the purpose of us being able to assure a level of affordability for 10 or 12 apartments in perpetuity.
That's
That was our
correct.
commitment, our public commitment to affordable housing.
That's correct.
Is that
And
correct?
that was necessary because as that, if you recall, we created the TIF district, approved the master plan, and then it sat. It's been an just extraordinarily difficult financing environment the last several years. And so when that site, when they were tussling between, is it a rental apartment, is it a hotel, is it a vacant lot, which was one of the options, just a surface parking lot to begin with. As they went through their budgeting, they realized to make that apartment possible with the affordable housing that we required, and then required for it to be there in perpetuity, that created a funding gap that was not originally anticipated. So that's where the Spark program came through. Manager Hawkinson shepherded that project and got all the contracts reviewed and awarded. So there's a history with that one.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Risser, did that comment
So
cause you to
it's-
have any other further
So
questions?
it's 10 to 12 apartments that we're getting?
I don't recall the exact
Okay.
number, maybe
15 apartments.
Okay.
15 apartments is the number.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, and those have been documented in many past conversations as far as the makeup and the arrangement of those, so.
All right, and you've got another report as well, 8.3.
Yeah, one last one, and then I'll sit down and move on. I wanted to provide a very brief update about a federal program that was being considered in Edina. The federal program is called an Opportunity Zone. It's version 2.0. The first Opportunity Zone was enacted federally, 8-10 years ago. This program does not require any, there's no cost contribution on the local side. It's all a federal program. It's basically a federal tax incentive to invest in qualified census tracts. And those census tracts meet a slightly confusing criteria set by the federal government where there's a certain low income component to that particular census tract. So the city of Edina is divided into 15 different census tracts. One of our census tracts did meet that federal criteria to potentially be considered as an opportunity zone. That's the 300-acre census tract that is between France Avenue in York, between city limits, Minnesota Drive on the south, and 70th Street on the north, just the southern edge of the Galleria. In that area, as we know, it's already been redeveloped from the gravel pit back decades ago, but there's a lot of senior housing, low-income housing in that whole census tract. There's also a lot of market rate housing and luxury housing. But the census tract did meet the criteria. We did ask, we worked through the state mandated process where we worked with the county to submit this as something we'd be interested to learn more about to see if we qualify. Eventually, the governor's office will make the decision of which census tracts are actually identified as an opportunity zone. And the governor's office is working through the counties, which is then working through the cities. So we worked with Hennepin County to put our hat in the ring. Eventually, this census tract was categorized as a Tier 2. So while it is possible that we might be identified for this federal tax incentive, I think it's unlikely at this point. I think the Tier 1 designated cities are going to be the ones that will actually be in the running. It is a competitive program. Out of the hundreds of qualified census tracts in the state, only 25% can actually be recognized. And there's a strong skew to recognize more rural areas than urban areas. So our hat's in the ring, but I think this will be the last time you hear about this from me. But it is an important program. It would have been could have been a game changer for a couple projects that are stalled. Both the Enclave site, they're back and running now, but also the Mortensen site. It could have really incentivized national credit investors to put those on the radars more heavily than they are today. But if there's any other reporting on that, if we are awarded or designated, I will follow up. But I think it's unlikely at this point in time.
Okay. Well, thanks for reporting on the long shot. At least it was some kind of a shot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Commissioner Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I didn't want to let the moment just pass by. We had received several emails about Starling and using public funds for that particular project. I do appreciate you going through the process that you went through and really verbalizing it in this meeting, because it does show the due diligence that you have taken and staff takes to be good stewards of those funds. And so I definitely appreciate that you do that, and that you're just sharing publicly what you've done in that particular case is very much appreciated.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for that observation. All right. Well, to the extent we can help you work with the county on anything related to influencing the governor, let us know.
Will do.
Good morning, Manager Hawkinson.
Good morning. My presentation up. Good morning.
morning.
It has been 8 years since the position of Affordable Housing Development Manager was created. And it was created to have a person focus on affordable housing endeavors, be it new construction, be it preservation, helping the people that live in affordable housing or what all. It was a pretty open charge. And after a review process, I was honored to be the first person in this position. So this is not a report about self-aggrandizement. This is a report about decisions that you all made that have helped further in affordable housing goals. So the city approved the first inclusionary affordable housing policy in 2015. Prior to that, as the chair has said, there'd be negotiating to try to get developers to include affordable units within their buildings. But, they could say no, and they could proceed, and there wasn't really anything to really hold their feet to the fire. A policy was approved in 2015, and there was some movement on that, but it was ancillary to every other thing that was being worked on in the city. And so, although a movement was made, it wasn't a focused effort. So you allowed buy-in to create some flexibility with your policy in 2018, and that's the year that this position was created. I think it was determined that there needed to be staff, that this was their job. So what has happened since that time? For multifamily inclusionary, where it's a market rate building that includes the affordable units, since 2018, there's delivered or under construction 86 units. I would like to point out that the Finch that was approved in 2022 is up and operating, and a subsequent decision was made for 28 of the affordable units to have a priority to serve adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and that is working, and it's fully operational. The one that's under construction right now is a setting that will bring those 15 units in a permanent affordability. What has been approved but not delivered yet are the 58 units that were at the old Macy's site. For 100% affordable,
since 2018 that were Amundsen Flats, the Sound, and 4040 Flats that were approved in 19, 20, and 21. And then we had 136 units that were approved in 2024. That was the residence building, the hotel that converted into affordable housing. And that's naturally occurring. They did not require any money from us. There's no declaration placed on those units or anything. So the pictures show 4040 Flats and Amundsen Flats. I think that was an era of naming where all of a sudden we have a lot of flats. We also have, y'all have approved multifamily preservation. The first project was in 2019 when Aon bought Villanova on Sandell, and it's an 11-unit building. 6 of them are affordable units. And then under construction right now, that was just approved in 2024, was the acquisition rehab of the 2 common bond properties. I had a meeting at South Haven last week, and I walked through an apartment. They look great. Those 2 buildings serve seniors, thus the picture of a happy senior getting a renovated apartment. And then Summit Point is the picture on the bottom. It hasn't been easy having an occupied rehab when there's a lot of work within the units, like flooring in the bathrooms, or just people have had to be moved around. There's been a lot of shuffling of residents. It's not comfortable having to be moved around a lot within an apartment building for those residents, but it's happening. Some are getting back into their permanent space. Summit Point should be done in August, so we shouldn't hear anything more from that's being set. South Haven will be a few more months because it's a lot larger building. You also approved the NOAA Preservation Program, and what this is to try to take naturally occurring affordable apartments where the rents are already affordable and preserving them. There's worried about flipping, that a new buyer could come in or rents could be jacked up and price out of the people that are currently living there. So y'all approved a program that allowed us to have them apply and opt into a 4D tax classification status if 20% of the buildings had a declaration placed on them that they had to remain affordable. They could have a affordable housing tax classification, which would save them a lot of money on their tax revenue, and they would be eligible for a $50,000 energy upgrade, so they could save on utility bills, and they have to be energy upgrades. It can't be carpeting. There has to be a connection point between energy and cost savings and the grant. And then the affordability period is longer. Slow start. It's not a very popular program. We've had 4 participating buildings since 2019, but it's 4 where all those units, those 42 units, are affordable, and they will remain affordable. One of the buildings is 100% affordable, and they actually opted to extend their declaration for extending their affordability term. The reason I think it's not very popular is they have to income verify the new tenants on turn. Right now, they just have to make sure that they make enough money. When they have the declaration placed on them, they have to make sure they don't make too much. And so it shrinks the market. So it's a harder one to sell. But that we have room in that for 1 or 2 more buildings, the funding remaining for that, and 1 is getting energy upgrades this summer, or started the process. You approved the housing improvement area, which allows condominiums to borrow money for common area improvements. So far, Edina West was the first applicant. 162 units saw upgrades. It's being paid back through property tax, fee added to their property tax statement. It's all going well. I've had 2 other condominiums inquire. We expect another application in a couple years. It's a long lead-up time to get this done. You have to have a vast majority of the residents agree to this assessment placed on their building, but some of our condos in the city are getting older. And there also, some of them are bigger than Edina West. So we might see this one was 3.65 million in the bonds. They could be higher than that, at the request moving forward.
Have you been over there at all to look at the improvements that have been made to date?
I drove through there, but I did not get a tour of it. Seems that people are happy. I received a call from one resident saying, what is this fee on my property tax? So I explained it, and it was all fine. There have been questions. They've been able to sell, though, because the buyers know that these improvements were being made. And so it has helped, actually, with some of the turns when people have moved out.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to see what they've done over there, or in process, or when they finish.
They
Anyway.
are finished. They are complete.
Oh, they are
So,
finished?
Yep,
Oh.
they're done.
Okay.
They've been done for a year or more.
Well, maybe you can give us contact information. I'd like to go over there and look and see what they've done.
I can do that.
Thank you.
For sure. The Affordable Ownership Preservation Program, this was kind of one of like, how do we preserve our remaining stock of affordable houses? They're diminishing. We've lost over 1,000 to tear downs, plus just natural evolution of pricing. Housing costs, I don't know if you've seen any headlines in the newspaper. Housing costs are increasing. It's becoming really hard to buy a home. So we came up with this idea. Let's just send out a postcard to every house that has a value of less than $425,000 and say, hey, if you don't want your house torn down, you want it preserved for another family, give us a call. And you awarded a total of $6.3 million to Habitat and Homes Within Reach. We're closing on 2 homes in the next 3 weeks. We just sold one to an end buyer, and I think 2 more are pending. I said there are 2 pending now, but I prepared this a week ago. Something's happening. It goes quiet, and then I get a lot of calls. It goes quiet, then I get a lot of calls. So Homes Within Reach has already expended their original 3.3, but then they sold the homes, kept those proceeds, and are recycling them. And so they're still using those recycled funds. Those are drying up a little bit. This program was supplemented with money from the Met Council and from Minnesota Housing. I applied for 2 grants and was awarded another $1 million plus to keep the program going. So we are doing so. But 26 homes have been preserved, 20 sold to end buyers since this program started in 2021. So I think that exceeds its expensive program, but those homes are now 99 years. They're not going anywhere, and they're going to be affordable. Single-family rental, we've done a couple programs. We had a partnership with the Met Council that was approved in 2020 to preserve 4 homes for their family affordable housing program, that these are rental, that are owned and managed by the Met Council. Y'all also awarded money to LAHA for 2 group homes that are owned and operated by Mora. So those for 12 units total, or 12 households, have been helped through the single-family rehab programs. Home rehab, this was approved in 2021, and we have served 66 households, and we have enough money for 1 more loan. So one of these homes, one of the programs was tied into the Housing Preservation Program, the Affordable Preservation Program. Some were condos, and so they were excluded from that, but there is a borrower of this program who said that they wanted to opt for that preservation. So she is selling her home to Habitat, and then this loan will be forgiven. Otherwise, it's a 2% simple interest and due on sale. But as far as having a tie into long-term preservation, it's worked on 1 so far. You awarded money for the First Generation Down Payment Assistance Program. This has helped 12 buyers, as you can see on the chart on the right, that since the introduction of this in recent years, the diversity of buyers through the Come Home to Edina program has increased a lot, in part because of the First Generation program. That's been on pause because we don't have the Come Home to Edina program right now, and it's tied to that. It's subordinate to the Come Home to Edina program. Since we don't have the Come Home to Edina program, this isn't really existing. The only place where Come Home to Edina and this can still exist is if it's tied to the Single Family Preservation Program, where we are funded through Minnesota Housing or the Met Council. If any of those funds are applied, part of the requirement is that we make available the first generation program. So there's a loop, there's a window for doing that. But you approved recently the Heroes Down Payment Assistance Program. The third loan is closing tomorrow. We've had 2 people in the school district and 1 a city employee. We've had a lot of inquiries, but finding a home has been the challenge. Only 1 has borrowed up to the maximum. The other 2 has been about half, under $50,000 that has been borrowed. These are due. They are paid back. These are not grants. There's been 1 house and 2 condos that have been able to be acquired, far less than $600,000 cap. Nothing, I mean, the home that's closing tomorrow is about 200. So that was just trying to do math and open up the pool, but it hasn't reached that. And for Commissioner Agnew, that is the logo. And you can see with the R, it looks like a cape and a shield.
I definitely missed that the first time around, but I do love the logo. Thank you.
I know you were concerned that we were going to have a logo. We've given emergency rental assistance that has helped thus far, and I haven't received Q2's invoice yet for this year, 708 households through the emergency rental assistance program. So right now, it's closed to all the other cities except Edina. So it says applications are only being accepted for the city of Edina because the other cities weren't as robust in their giving as you all were. And so they've run out of money for everyone else. So only Edina, they're only accepting applications for Edina. Not to cast shade on the other cities, but to applaud you for the generosity. Internet Essentials was a program that also started in 2020. We have currently 121 active participants. This ends at the end of the year due to lack of funding. It is about $16,000 annually. It goes to very low-income people so they can have internet to be able to watch TV, look for work, do homework, whatever. And for some folks, this is their only access to being able to have internet in their home. But the program does dry up at the end of the year. So then we have summaries. You know, we've used for the multifamily inclusionary and the multifamily 100% affordable, TIF, and other sources of funding. I would like to point out, based on the previous discussion, with multifamily affordable, often TIF is layered with multiple other sources. It's the only way that these projects can get funded. So they are layered with TIF that is generated from the project, as well as pooled TIF, as well as affordable housing trust funds, Met Council funds, Minnesota Housing funds, Hennepin County funds, Federal Home Loan Bank funds sometimes. So it is a layering. Sometimes there are 12 sources, including TIF as one of the 12. So there's lots of layering, and that is a standard practice for every affordable housing in every community. Multifamily preservation, we use TIF pooled in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. NOAA preservation, we use Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Housing improvement areas for the general obligation bonds. Affordable Housing Preservation Program was Affordable Housing Trust Fund and outside sources. Single-family rental, we use TIF pooled and LAHA. Home rehab program was the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. First generation down payment assistance, Affordable Housing Trust Fund. HEROES, DPA, down payment assistance was the TIF pooled. Emergency rental assistance was CARES, ARPA, and LAHA, and Internet Essentials was ARPA primarily. So none of these programs, none of those households that have been helped, those over 1,000 households that have been helped, have used any general levy funds. $0.
With that Internet Essentials, have you had any conversations with the Edina Ed Fund or Edina Give and Go? Because you'd hate to see these families without the ability to have access to the internet with, I'm assuming, kids in the household. And if there's some way we can figure out how to continue that program, either through philanthropy or some other method.
I've not talked with them.
I haven't spoken with the school or with Edina Give and Go, but we have had a conversation with Comcast to see if there's any willingness on their end to have some flexibility, and they are thinking about it.
Well, good. Yeah, that was a good move on your part. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, it may be combined. They have some programs through where they get philanthropic dollars through to Minneapolis, and so they're talking to some of their funders about whether or not, since this is a suburb of Minneapolis, whether or not they can expand the boundaries of the dollars that they're receiving that help these low-income families.
There's several. Is it the Minneapolis Foundation then that's providing that philanthropy?
I don't know the source. That she was not forthcoming with letting me know that, other than that they have these programs with philanthropic sources.
Well, we've got several community members on the Minneapolis Foundation board, and I'm wondering whether they even know that this is a possibility, or that they might have some funds to be able to help continue these Internet Essential.
And Comcast did tell me that some of their philanthropy runs through nonprofits, and I said, well, we have an ancillary nonprofit that could help if you need the money to go to a nonprofit that could still serve these same customers. So we have been in some conversations, but nothing has been decided. And I have closed applications. They're no longer, I've not been accepting any more applications. I haven't for many months because I knew the funds were running out.
Yeah.
And we were eking by on serving the customers that we have to the end of the year.
I think this was originally an allocation of federal funds during COVID.
It was.
That was, and I think it was $500,000?
Through ARPA. Mm-hmm.
It started out as $500,000, but then we realized we didn't need that $500,000, and it was reduced and the funds were reallocated. So it ended up being only about 80.
Oh, okay.
Because it's less than $20,000 a year.
I was trying to think in my mind how we went through $500,000 in federal funds with this program so soon with 121 families. So
We weren't sure at the time that we made the allocation, how many people would sign up for
correct.
it, and et cetera.
Understood. All right, thank you.
And then just to make you aware that we do have this on, there is a dashboard on the website that talks about our progress. So if you have any questions, I'm available, but kudos to moving the dial.
Yeah, great report. It's good to get these updates. I think our residents appreciate these updates too, so they can see how the funds are being invested. Commissioner?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So when I was at the League of Minnesota Cities, I was talking to some folks about affordable housing. And one of the programs that I believe was a city council member from Minnetonka was talking about, and this would be for our legislative agenda, with naturally occurring affordable housing, and it was the 4D program. She was talking about how she has a child who lives in Austria, like our executive directors, but a different program, where you have to be affordable to move in, but once you're in and your income goes up, you don't get booted out. And so I'd like to see that as part of our legislative agenda. I don't know which program it would go through, but I feel really badly that if it's a burden on the manager for the building, and if we can get them in the program to upgrade these buildings and keep them affordable, we shouldn't have to put the burden on the manager to then make sure that people continue to need affordable housing.
To add some clarity, when people sign up, when owners sign up for the program, no one is booted. Everyone is grandfathered in, and they're not checked after that.
Okay.
The rents have to be affordable, but the only time when someone, and this is true with our inclusionary, this is true with our 100% affordable, we're not in the business of keeping people oppressed. If someone moves in and they're income qualified to move into a building of any of these types and they get a better job, good on them, and they're not punished.
Okay. So, but as you're looking at programs, make sure that if there's an opportunity for us to make that clear or expand it to, again, not punish people for doing well in life, I'd like you to keep an eye open for that, because I thought it was a great idea. Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Risser.
I should know this, but you started and you said in 2018, we allowed the buy-in for the affordable housing. And I know there have been periods when we don't have the buy-in. And then where are we now? Or the buy, yeah.
Chair, Commissioners, the buy-in is still an option. The law states that that cities can require affordable units. The law does not say that you can, at first hand, offer the buy-in without requesting the affordable units. So you have to, the first layer is requiring the affordable units. That's allowed. If they choose not to, it is an option to do a payment in lieu. And we have that still. It's right now at $175,000 per unit. If a project comes forward and from economic reasons or whatever, and you agree to it, that they do a payment in lieu and do not include the affordability, that is allowed. Metropolitan Council recently completed a nexus study that helps determine what that payment in lieu should be. So we will be looking at our policy, because we did some mental, math calculations of how much they're losing with the rents and the affordable, and trying to come up with some equivalency that would not cause the developers to all run and never come into Edina, because it really equates to over $350,000 is what the delta really is. But it's not realistic to ask a developer. They wouldn't want to develop here. So we have to find that sweet spot where we're still attractive for developers to come in here, but we're not making it where doing a payment in lieu is such an easier choice. So we have to find that sweet spot. At any rate, we still have it in our policy.
So there's no requirement if the land is rezoned to PUD, you don't have to actually build the affordable housing? You can do the buyout?
It depends on the density, where they have to comply with the affordable housing policy. A change was made in 2022 where if they are at maximum density, they have to include the units. If they are not at maximum density, if they're at 75% of maximum density, then they can have a choice of doing the inclusion or the buy-in.
And it's not connected to public land or anything?
It's the policy, having the policy imposed is, if a building is bought or land is bought on the private market and it's zoned correctly and they don't need to have a PUD, they do not need a zoning change, they do not need a comp plan change, they can build it because it complies, the affordable housing policy does not kick in. If they are buying public land, if they need money, if they need a PUD, they need a comp plan change, then the policy gets kicked in. Whether or not they choose to do inclusionary or they choose to do buy-in, that's up to them with your approval, but it's what triggers the policy.
But it needs our approval.
The policy is triggered if certain events take place, whether or not they do buy-in or inclusionary, they include the units. Yes, you approve the project, and it is disclosed to you up front whether or not they're going to be including the project or the units, or they're going to do buy-in, and that is part of the overall site plan approval and funding approvals that you approve.
Thank you.
A couple of quick things for you. Would you send around by email to all of us, because I think we could use it, and at least I would like to have the program summary, those last 3 slides, the program summary, and then the 2 pages of that, and then the affordable housing dashboard. And then secondly, I think it'd be beneficial to me to have a conversation with you soon, because we had our first MLC housing meeting online yesterday to start preparing for the next legislative session. As we've worked these last few years in trying to think about local control and the things we're doing in our individual cities, and and making sure the legislature understands what we're all doing and what we're expending on affordable housing. Beyond that, we still need to think about how to achieve more housing production and more housing affordability. And so, for me, I think it'd be helpful if I visited with you about your ideas around some of those things.
I'm happy to.
So that we can find a pathway that still allows cities to maintain local control over their land use.
I'm happy to meet at any point in time. You can see by the years of when things were approved, a vast majority of these projects were approved in 2019, 20, 21, and 22. There has not been much activity since then, and part of that is financing, the financing world. It's harder. And so the movement has stalled.
Okay. Commissioner Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So we had spent, I don't know, I can't even remember when this was now, maybe 2 years ago, a year ago, looking at other creative solutions to try to solve the the funding problem for affordable housing. And so this is one of the spaces, and this is probably true in every space, but for sure you can see it in affordable housing and all the programs that you're leading. You can always look at it and say, well, we should be doing something different. Well, this isn't working. I can't believe we only have X number of apartments. But it's a space where it's like it's always under construction. So no pun intended. But I have found since I've been in this role, I think 6 years, something like that. When I started, I wanted to redo everything. Like you come in, you have this idea, this isn't working, let's tear it down and redo it so that it's better. And there's nothing principally wrong with that. But what you see here is that you're doing both. You're saying, all right, this is what we have today. Let's execute this as well as we can to get as much benefit as we can out of it. And then you're saying, in parallel, let's look at other ways to make that even more efficient. And so I just appreciate that. Kind of my theme today. We also get an email or two from residents that don't think these funds are being used in the best way possible. But when you look at the result and you think to yourself, well, if we didn't do any of this, what would the outcome be? I just think it's worth it. And I just want to underscore the work that you have been doing and say thank you for that, and to continue the parallel approach. Let's keep running what we got and be open to trying to figure out, are there other things we can do to increase the impact that we have in all these areas.
Yeah, well said. Thank you for that. All right, anybody else? Thanks. Thanks for the update. Executive Director, anything to report?
Nothing to report this morning, thank you.
Okay, any other HRA member comments? Commissioner Risser.
Just real quickly, I was dropping off stuff at ARC yesterday, and it was do-it-yourself drop-off because of the weather and the smoke, and just thinking about all the city employees who may be out and about and really hoping, you know, we have messaged, take care of yourself, because it is really bad.
It is, and I saw the AQI this morning is in 395, which is probably the highest in the world this morning. But we are going to be closing the Aquatic Center later today because of the air quality issues. Other more elective parks we're not going to close. We're not going to close golf, but the Aquatic Center we will close.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second.
Commissioner Jackson moves, Commissioner Agnew seconds the motion to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried? We stand adjourned.